My parents thought it was fine to abandon me in a distant state. "You're a burden," they sneered before speeding away, leaving me with nothing and no one. 5 years later, when my father learned about my inheritance, it only confirmed what I'd long suspected. My parents never truly cared for me. They merely tolerated my existence, and even that was a stretch. I wasn't the golden child, the obedient son who followed their every command. I questioned them, spoke my mind, and refused to bend to their demands. That made me an inconvenience. In my family, inconveniences were cast aside. At 16, as summer break drew to a close, most kids dreaded school, but I couldn't wait. Anything was better than home. Lately, my parents had grown colder. My mother barely acknowledged me unless absolutely necessary, and my father only noticed me when I fell short of his expectations. I figured it was just another one of their moods. I'd learned early not to probe. Then one morning, my father told me to pack a small bag. "We're taking a trip," he said. "Just a few days, pack light." That should have been my first clue. My parents weren't the type for impulsive getaways, especially not with me along. But I didn't question it. I grabbed a few clothes, my charger, and essentials. When I came downstairs, my bag was gone. "Your mom packed for you," my father said. That was the second warning. We drove for hours, leaving the city behind, passing through suburbs, then into rural nowhere. The farther we went, the more uneasy I felt. My parents didn't say a word to me the entire drive. My mother stared out the window, expressionless, while my father gripped the wheel, eager to reach wherever we were headed. We finally pulled up to a rundown motel in a forgotten town. The sign buzzed faintly and the building looked like it was crumbling. My mother got out first, followed by my father. I reached for my bag, but it wasn't there. "Where's my stuff?" I asked. My mother turned, arms folded, her face blank. "We left it at home, you won't need it." My father didn't even look at me. "We're done, Ethan. You're a burden. We're not putting up with you anymore." I thought I'd misheard. Then my mother added, "You won't listen. You don't want to be part of this family? Fine, sort yourself out." I laughed, expecting a prank. They couldn't mean it. But they climbed back into the car. My father started the engine, my mother slammed her door, and before I could process it, they were gone. I ran after them, shouting, "Are you serious? You're actually leaving me here?" My father didn't glance back. I stood in the dust, heart pounding. Part of me hoped it was a test, that they'd return in an hour to teach me a lesson. But deep down, I knew. They weren't coming back. I checked my pockets, my phone, my wallet, and roughly $500 in my account. That was all I had. I could beg them to return or figure out how to survive. I chose survival. There was no point chasing people who didn't want me. If this was my new reality, I'd make it work. I found a cheap hostel nearby and paid for a bed in a shared room. It wasn't much, but it was a roof over my head. The next day, I started looking for work. No diploma, no experience, but I was strong and determined. After countless doors slammed in my face, I got a job at a construction site. The pay was low, the work exhausting, but I took it. Days passed with no word from my parents. No calls, no messages. I wasn't surprised. That first year was brutal. I worked construction during the day, picked up odd jobs when I could, and barely made ends meet. I stayed in hostels, then a tiny apartment with 2 roommates who barely spoke my language. Every cent mattered. I lived on cheap rice and ramen, but I never once thought about contacting my parents. By the second year, things got better. I picked up electrical work on the job, and a supervisor saw something in me. He mentored me, and soon I was wiring buildings. The pay improved, and I moved into a small studio in a rough part of town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. By year 3, I'd earned my electrician's license and moved to Los Angeles. My company paid well, and I started saving. I bought a reliable car, rented a 1-bedroom apartment, and began to see a future for myself. By year 4, I'd built a life from scratch. I traveled for work, took on major projects, and even thought about starting my own business. The only family I kept in touch with was my grandparents. My parents and sisters, complete silence, and I was fine with that. Then in my 5th year away, everything shifted. One evening my phone rang. It was my grandfather, his voice heavy. "She's gone, Ethan," he said. I didn't need to ask who. "She passed peacefully last night. No suffering." "When's the funeral?" I asked. "In 2 days," he replied softly. I was swamped with a big project at work, and taking time off wasn't an option. "I can't make it," I admitted, guilt settling in. "She wouldn't want you to jeopardize your job," my grandfather said. "She was proud of you." His words eased the weight slightly. The funeral came and went without me. That night, my grandfather called again. "They were all there," he said, meaning my parents and sisters. "Your father had plenty to say about you." I braced myself. He called you ungrateful, said you showed your true colors by not showing up. I clenched my jaw. Even after 5 years, my father couldn't resist tearing me down. What you say? I asked. I told him to be quiet, my grandfather said. I laughed. He'd never stood up to my father like that before. I'm proud of you, Ethan, he went on. You built something for yourself. That's more than he's ever done. His words hit deep, but then came the real shock. A month later, a lawyer called, mentioning my grandmother's name. She left you something, he said. My heart raced. What do you mean? An inheritance, he explained. She left you $500,000. I nearly dropped the phone. My grandparents weren't rich, or so I'd thought. She wanted you to have it, the lawyer said. You'll need to sign some documents your grandfather can explain. I was floored. $500,000, but before I could process it, my phone rang again. My father. After 5 years of silence, I was suddenly worth his time. I let it go to voicemail. Ignoring them wouldn't make them vanish, but I wasn't ready to engage. The next morning, I checked his message. We need to talk, Ethan, you owe us. You're our son. I read it twice. Owe them? For what? For abandoning me, for treating me like garbage, for leaving me with nothing and hoping I'd fail. I wasn't going to argue over text. If they wanted to talk, it'd be on my terms. 5 years had passed since I'd seen my parents' house. Driving down that street felt like walking into a bad dream. The driveway was cracked, the paint chipped, the lawn overgrown. A beat-up car I didn't recognize sat out front. When I knocked, my mother opened the door after a long pause. She looked older, worn down. But when she saw me, her face twisted into a smug grin, as if my presence meant I'd given in. So you've finally come around, she said, stepping aside. I walked in, taking in the scene. The house felt smaller, more cluttered. My older sister, Sarah, sat on the couch, arms crossed, her husband next to her, staring at his phone. Their toddler played with battered toys on the floor. My father stood in the kitchen doorway, eyeing me like I didn't belong. No one looked happy to see me. I leaned against the wall. All right, I'm here. What do you want? My father scoffed. What do we want? You're our son, Ethan. Families help each other. I stared at him. Did that start before or after you left me in the middle of nowhere? Sarah sighed loudly. Are we really going over this? It was 5 years ago. I gave a cold laugh. Yeah, 5 years of nothing, no calls, no concern, but now I've got money and suddenly I'm family again. We raised you for 16 years, my father snapped. You think that was free? I blinked. You're saying I owe you for being born? He stepped closer. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head. You chose to have me, I shot back. You don't get to play victims. My mother jumped in. You wouldn't have made it without us. I shook my head. You treated me like a problem my whole life, dumped me with nothing, and now you think I owe you because I didn't fail? You wanted me to fail. My father's jaw tightened. Watch how you speak, I laughed. Or what, you'll kick me out again? Oh, wait, you can't, I don't need you anymore. Silence fell. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Even the toddler seemed to feel the tension. Then my father changed his approach. Look, you've got plenty now, we're struggling. Sarah and her family live here because they can't afford their own place. The decent thing is to share. Decent? I echoed. Like how you helped me when I had nothing. Sarah spoke up, her voice softer. Ethan, I have a kid. We can barely buy food. Are you going to let your nephew go hungry when you've got $500,000? I turned to her. You didn't speak to me for 5 years. You cut me out just like they did. Now you expect me to care? She looked away, saying nothing. My mother spoke again, her tone sharp. If you don't help, we'll tell everyone what kind of son you are. Selfish, ungrateful, abandoning your family. I went still. Are you threatening me? She raised her chin. People deserve to know the truth. I stared, then smiled. Tell whoever you want, I don't care. My father's face darkened. You're heartless. No, I said evenly. I'm finally choosing myself, something you never let me do. I turned to leave, then stopped. Looking around the rundown house, I added, you were right about one thing. Family does support each other. Their eyes lit up with hope until I continued. I'm buying a house, a nice one. Grandpa's moving in with me. Sarah, you and your family can come if you want. Sarah's head jerked up, stunned. My parents' faces twisted in confusion. But not you, I said, looking at them. You can stay here. My mother paled. You wouldn't, I smiled. I would, because I don't want you dragging me down. They stammered, but I was already walking out. Their choices had led to this. Now I was making mine. Leaving that house, I felt lighter than I had in years. I hadn't just stood my ground, I'd turned their own words against them. They'd left me to fend for myself. Now I was leaving them behind. That night my grandfather called. Heard what you did, he said, a chuckle in his voice. Too far? I asked. Not far enough, he replied. Your father's been ranting all day, thought I'd side with him. And, I asked, I told him I'm proud of you. His words warmed me, then his tone grew serious. But there's more you should know. My stomach tightened. What? He sighed. They're in deeper trouble than you realize. Your father made bad investments years ago, lost everything. That's why Sarah's living with them. They're barely hanging on. I frowned. So they need me? They're desperate, he said. That's why they're trying to guilt you. It wasn't just greed, it was survival, and I just walked away. Then he added, Sarah came to see me after you left. She's upset, not just about the money, but everything. She regrets cutting you off. I paused. You think she's genuine? I think she's starting to see how much they've controlled her, and I think she's scared. That caught me off guard. The next night, Sarah texted, can we meet? I considered ignoring it, but agreed to hear her out. We met at a diner. Without our parents, she seemed different, less guarded, more open. I deserved what you said, she admitted, staring at her coffee. I bought into their lies about you being the problem, but now I see they were manipulating me too. Why tell me this now? I asked. She looked up. Because I don't want to be like them. I'm leaving, me, my husband, and our son. I don't want them controlling my kid's life. For the first time, I saw Sarah wasn't just going along with them, she'd been trapped too. Where will you go? I asked. She hesitated. I'm not sure yet. I took a deep breath. If you're serious about breaking free, come live with me. Her eyes widened. Ethan, I meant it, I said. I'm buying a house. Grandpa's moving in. You and your family can too, but not them. Tears filled her eyes. She nodded slowly. I'd like that. The next day, Sarah packed up and left. When our parents found out, they lost it. My father called, yelling, you stole her from us. No, I said calmly. You pushed her away just like you did me. My mother's voice came through, shrill. You're tearing this family apart. No, I corrected. I'm saving the parts worth keeping. I hung up, and that was the last time we spoke. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of my new home, watching the sunset. It was more than I'd ever imagined, a spacious house outside Lowe's Angels with room for all of us. Grandpa had the master suite. Sarah, her husband, and their son had their own space upstairs. For the first time, I had a home that felt like mine, a fresh start. The best part? My parents weren't part of it. I'd half expected my father to show up, demanding another chance. He never did. Maybe his ego wouldn't let him. Sarah said they kept trying to guilt her into going back. They call constantly, she told me one evening on the porch. And, I asked, she grinned, I don't pick up. For the first time in years, she looked happy. She'd found a job, her son was doing well, and she and her husband were building a life free from our parents' control. Grandpa was thriving too. I should have left years ago, he said one afternoon, relaxing in a lawn chair. He'd been hesitant to move in, not wanting to be a burden, but he wasn't. He was family, the only one who'd always had my back. One night, an unknown number texted, It's Mom. We just want to talk. I stared at it, then deleted it. I wasn't angry anymore, but I wasn't letting them back in either. They'd made their choices, I'd made mine. I turned off my phone and went inside to my real family, the one I'd chosen. Update, life's been good, better than I ever expected. Work is steady, Grandpa's content, and Sarah's family is flourishing. Sometimes it feels unreal, going from nothing to this. A home, stability, a family that actually supports each other. I hadn't thought about my parents in months until last week when an old neighbor called. Don't know if you care, he said, but your parents lost their house. I paused. The bank had foreclosed. They'd left town quickly. For a moment I felt something, not sympathy, just a strange detachment. 5 years ago they thought they could discard me without consequences. Now they had nothing, I told Sarah later. She shook her head. They brought this on themselves. She was right. They'd had choices just like I did, and now they were facing the consequences. I didn't ask where they'd gone. I just said, thanks for the heads up, and moved on.